Welcome to MILF.
I'm Courtney.
And I'm Jennifer.
And we are two moms into literary freedom. Hey Jen, how do you like our new space?
I'm loving it. It looks really good, Courtney.
I just did these shelves. I did it all by myself. Can you tell?
She's Miss Handy, not man, handy lady.
Yeah, handy woman. Yeah.
Handy woman.
So let's introduce our guest. We don't want to be rude. We have with us Miss Annie is her Instagram handle, and her last name, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pronounce the right way. So Annie, do you want to go ahead?
You don't have to. Fun fact, I didn't know how to say my last name for a year after I got married. I said it wrong, and no one corrected me. Yeah, I know. So it looks like Wisher. It's Wixer.
Wixer.
Okay.
Yeah, my husband is Croatian.
Oh, okay. My husband is Dutch, and so mine is Van de Bunty, but everyone wants to like add an R, like Vander Bunt, and I never correct.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, that's a hard one
to say my last name for a long time too. I really wish that I had kept my maiden name, which is green, like the color.
Oh, that's a cute one. No, my maiden name sucked too, so it was like, which one do I pick? So that's kind of why I always just went by Miss Annie, because the kids were like, "What?"
That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. What grade did you teach?
So I was a special ed teacher first, and I was licensed pre-K through all the way through 21, but I usually did like elementary, middle school. Yeah. And then this last time, when I was a counselor, also elementary, middle school.
Awesome. So that's kind of what we want to have you here. Why we invited you on our podcast is to share your story, because I kind of came across it. I don't know how, but someone suggested your account to my page, and I came across your post. And so that's how, I kind of found you and told Jen about you. I guess we should just jump right into your story that had something to do with a pride flag and you no longer having a job.
It's so crazy. So I've worked at this Catholic school, for 4 years. I started when my son was in preschool. So we went to school and he went to school together. So we kind of drove to school, and, I'm a public school advocate, so I never thought I'd work at a private school, but It was during COVID stuff. And so it was open. And that's kind of how we fell into it with my son. He started pre-K there. It was open. We enrolled him. They needed a school counselor, and I had a background in it. So I said, sure. And then we really liked it. So we just continued on. But this last year, we had a change in administration, the priest changed, and I think just maybe values changed along with that. But it was so weird. I went in a few months ago, like over the summer, just thinking I was signing a contract, and they sat me down, the principal and the priest, and they had this piece of paper, and they like slammed it on the table, and they were like, have you seen this? And I was like, yeah, it's a pride flag. And they were like, was this on your Instagram? And I said,
it was just on your Instagram?
So it wasn't in your classroom?
No, it was... Yeah, it was. I had one in a drawer in my it was in a drawer.
Right. Yeah. So I remember seeing your post on Instagram about, which is like so moving, that you would have that for like when kids did come in, you were like, hey, look what I have,
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. So I had it I put it up in 2021. The post was from a long time ago, and the post was just basically saying like, why do I support LGBTQ plus kids, and why would I do that in a Catholic school? And it just gave just some statistics about the high suicidality rates with kids and teens who are part of that group. And so that was all the posts said. It didn't say like our names or the school name, or they didn't say anything about really being Catholic. It truly was just a pride flag on my Instagram.
And for our listeners, the statistics that you're referring to, we've talked about a lot on this podcast. I don't think I'm going to get the numbers right, but basically just that students in the LGBT community have a significantly higher suicide. And
yes. And I think, and that's probably lower than what it even is, and especially in faith-based communities. And that's kind of what I found working at this school, not as much elementary kids, but middle school kids oftentimes would come to my office and have a really tough time just with identity things, because their families also were quite conservative Catholic. A lot of our families were Hispanic conservative Catholic, and they really just didn't feel comfortable talking to anybody about it. And really, a lot of times
Jennifer has talked about a lot on the podcast is that intersection between like the Hispanic conservative culture and like what we're seeing today.
And our culture is very machista. There's a lot of, men have to be strong and, very masculine. I get it.
Well, and they didn't feel comfortable even just having these conversations. So it didn't even mean that they were gay or whatever. It was more just like, I'm just kind of wondering about this. And so when kids would come in, we'd just have pretty open dialogues. But anyway, it wasn't something I was teaching or flashing in people's faces. It was just a little
open
flag
dialogue
that I kept in my drawer.
Right.
Yeah. And so apparently a parent, which I think I know the parent, but they took a picture of it, sent it to the diocese in Charlotte, and the diocese apparently called the school and said, we're deeply concerned about this woman and her teachings, like she can't work there anymore.
Now, as someone who is just very Catholic and religiously ignorant, what is a diocese? Is that like
good question? And I have to preface with, I'm not the most Catholic person either. I'm like cafeteria Catholic. I grew up Catholic, and I've kind of always picked and choose what made sense to me. But so a diocese is kind of the top of what locally of what all of the churches around it kind of like if I would think of a school, you think of like a school district, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
like there's a district and then there are all these different schools. Same with the diocese. So they are in charge of the local churches, but also if the church has a school, then
are they like the superintendent essentially?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
it's
they
very
found out
much,
about
I
it.
mean, yes, like Catholicism is very much like a pyramid. So you just kind of always you always have to listen to who's above you, really.
Right.
And so, so there's a diocese. I live in North Carolina, and so there's a diocese in Charlotte, which is what we're connected to. And then I know there's one in Raleigh, and so it just kind of outreaches depending on where you live.
Got it. And so they found out that a parent was mad, right, about the pride flag.
So, yeah.
Do you think that it like maybe if it was sort of like a don't ask, don't tell situation, like if the parents weren't mad, but maybe someone knew you were like, you had a pride flag in your drawer, or you were having these open conversations, but parents weren't complaining about it, it would be a different story? Or do you think it would still...
I think it's twofold. I think because of changes in who was like running our school, I think they weren't necessarily advocating for me as well. And so they got this call and they just kind of went with it. So there was that. And two, there's been a big shift. I would say just what I've noticed in Catholicism in general, but right now, and probably because politically what's going on, it's become very traditional in a lot of places where it wasn't before. So we're seeing a lot more people veiling. We're seeing a lot more people having more and more children, like a lot of people pulling out for homeschooling, and it just wasn't how I was raised in Catholicism.
Isn't the new Pope like super woke?
Yeah, well, kind of, but I mean, yes, we're like we're going in the right direction. But we also have JD Vance, so it's like who, you know what I mean? And so it's just there's like this definitely like this split. And so the reason why I was always okay being at this school where I felt safe was because the people I knew were pretty progressive, and it was economically and ethnically so diverse. And so I thought, okay, like this is a super welcoming place. Like this, it's not a big deal. But I just have seen things change as the years have gone on.
Yeah.
When they presented you with the photo, did they give you an option like you have to delete the post or get rid of it, or it was just like you're done?
You're done.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So I usually I'm a talker. And so usually I have something smart to say, but I was so stunned by the whole thing that my mouth is like, what? So I think the only thing I was able to get out was like, well, what if I just like take it out of my class? Like, what if I just take the pride flag out, you know? And they're like, no, the damage is done.
So just to clarify, in this post, did you admit to having it in your drawer or something? Okay, that's why the parents were like, "How dare she have something?" Yes.
Dangerous. And I think it's interesting too because once it happened, it's a small school, so news spread, and so a huge portion of the school, the parents like wrote all these letters and signed it saying like, "Don't take Miss Annie away," and so it wasn't like it was a majority of people, and that made me feel really good. But it was just one or two who felt very deeply about that.
Like, why should they win?
Well, that's kind of what that's where a lot of parents are upset because who I think it is, and the only reason I say this is because there have been other complaints this parent has made. Apparently there was like some scouts meeting and they were doing yoga beforehand, and she had called the diocese saying like, that's the devil's work. You can't keep doing yoga.
The devil. Those pants are so tight.
Yes, all of it was bad, and so we know who that person was, and
they see meditation as like a big no.
Oh, see, I don't know anything about
which is again so strange because I grew up going to a Catholic church where there was yoga, we had yoga in the one of the rooms, so it's so strange to me. But yes, so apparently it's bad, and they took it out of the scout. They said, okay, yeah, you can't do yoga anymore. So they're listening to these certain voices, but not other voices.
Yeah. We see that a lot. Here locally, all across the
state of Florida
and all of the United States, we see a very few amount of vocal moms who complain about everything, and they keep winning.
It wasn't even a mom; it was some man who didn't even have kids, and I think it was Broward or Brevard.
He's got 198 books banned,
and he doesn't even have kids, and he was responsible for hundreds of books being banned. Which good news, and I know I'm jumping around a lot, but did you see that a judge, I think it was a federal judge, blocked the woke act in Florida, the 1069?
I did.
Which
what
the 1069 bill is? It's basically the bill that says that books like The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, or I think that was the specific example that they were using. Right. It was a Toni Morrison book. 1069 said that those books are inappropriate for school. Even though they passed the Miller test, and the Miller test is a 3-pronged test where it's does it have literary value? Well, if it has literary value, then it's not, even though there are descriptions of sexual assault, the book, is still allowed to be in school. And so 1069 passed a couple of years ago, around 2021, which is when this was happening with you. That was 2021 to 2024. Those 3 years were very detrimental to to books and libraries and schools and even public libraries. But just recently, a few days ago, which is how long it takes for this shit to actually go through the courts, which is so annoying. The judge said, no, you can't take books like this out because they passed. So the Miller test is still upheld.
Yeah.
So that's great news.
Yes.
But all these books they've already been removed from public schools.
That's the thing.
The damage has been
done.
And it's that that the schools aren't going to be okay, let's go back and get them all, because they're afraid of parents.
And the funding's not there to buy all these books back.
That's
So
good.
It's so true though. It's these small voices, or they're not small, they're loud. They're loud voices, but they're representing
the loud minority.
And especially too then within this Catholic Church, everyone is so kind and is taught to just kind of do as you're told. And so even the teachers, they all loved me and they all messaged me privately, but wouldn't put anything publicly, even today I had to go pick up my things. And that was very awkward. So I wore my pride shirt, but they even kind of just peeked out their classrooms and did a secret hi. It was so strange. I was oh, it was as if I committed a crime, but so.
The courage of loving children and listening to them and actually seeing them for who they actually are.
Yeah.
Which brings me to one of our questions that we put on our agenda is, what do you think is the most important part of your work?
So I was thinking about this, and I think any type of mental health in public, I should say public or private education, it's just the accessibility, because a lot of these kids and families don't have access to counseling because of money, insurance, or even just judgment around counseling. And so being able to meet kids where they all are coming anyways is such a important thing. And that's kind of why I got into it. I thought about going into more of a private practice, but it's a different type of group who goes to private practice. And so the kids who I like to reach are the ones who wouldn't necessarily get it otherwise. And just being able to teach, it's what's cool in a school setting is you don't have to go super deep. It's a lot of teaching lessons, a lot of social emotional teaching. And so you're really just giving vocabulary to kids. And when they have the words to know what to do then in those difficult situations, or just say this is how I feel. It's amazing how much that changes things.
Words that we didn't have when we were growing up, that we're now teaching our kids, that we're what would our lives have, not that I regret my life, but what would I have done differently had I had, the resources and the tools that I'm now providing my kid with, or that people like you are now providing, hundreds of kids with. It's so important. Yet
our country would be different, right?
It's so different.
We would have a president. We would not be last in math, that's for sure.
And that's why that's why they're afraid of people in educators like yourself, because they don't want that change. That
Mhm.
scares
They
them.
want to keep females, if we're going to make this about gender, which let's be honest, I always make it about gender. They want to keep females like feeling like they're not the ones that can make the rules and call the shots. And but not just females, you know, that anyone in a different community, whether it's BIPOC or LGBTQ, it doesn't matter. It's the white man that is supposed to be in charge. And that's what we see. Like, name the three most evil men in the world, and what do they all have in common? They're all white, cis men.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Sorry.
Agree. Preach, girl.
Not a junior episode, but we do junior episodes where I don't curse. At least I try not to.
Oh, you do? How cool is that?
Yeah. So this is going to be the book that we cover on our next junior episode, called "When Aiden Became a Brother."
I haven't read that.
Yeah, it's got the Stonewall Book Award. It's relatively new, right? I just picked this up at a bookstore this summer. But in junior episodes, I try not to curse. And we talk about the book so that way, like, parents that are interested in listening can listen with their kids. But that brings us to our next question, which is, do you have a favorite banned book that maybe you read with your 1-year-old, or like a picture book of any kind?
Yeah, I mean, I like the classic, what is it? You, Me, and Tango. What is it?
And Tango makes three.
Yes. That's it.
Right here.
I always forget the title. I'm like, I know it's Tango.
Me too. I'm like, You, Me, and Tango. Which one is it? But that one I pull out a lot, and I pulled out a lot with students. And I did a stint. What is it? And Tango Makes Three. Yes. It's such a good. It's just a classic, but. I love that one. I worked in adoptions for a little bit too, and that was such a good one to pull out, even just with families, to be like, hey, this is a great book to read, you know, once your adoption goes through, or just to even get your other kids ready for adoption. Or I think a lot of those books, it's so sad because it's like twofold with picture books, like the Tango book. And because it's like, one, it makes kids feel less alone, right? They don't feel weird because they know that they're not the only one if there's a book about it. But two, it's also like so much, it's giving awareness to kids who don't have that life, you know, and it's giving them the empathy to be like, oh, wait, outside of myself, there's these other types of families and there's other type of groups, and that's cool too, you know? And so
it's like the windows and mirrors.
That's what I was.
So it's can be windows into a completely different world that you've never seen before. They can be mirrors that reflect what you're experiencing.
That's perfect, and that's exactly what it is. And it makes me sad that even when I had the job that I had to be. Not that anyone said don't use these books, but I just knew, like, I can't use these books, or someone's going to say something or whatever. So you just had to be really careful. But yeah, so with books like that, I would, if parents did have questions about things, or like, oh, do you have other resources? I would just email them and be like, hey, these are some of the things that I've read to kids before and I like them. So, and
we actually covered this book. It was one of the first ones I think we covered because it's such a famous book. And this book is has a large part in the 1069 victory that we just saw, because I think it was like the author, or the public. It was
Penguin Random House.
I get confused because it's Penguin Random House. I'm like, is it the Penguin author, or is it the
which penguin?
Something with penguins. Penguins did it though,
right? Yeah, the Penguins did it. It was a few authors, and this author was one of them.
Okay.
Along with Penguin Random House, that filed the lawsuit, and so you know,
essentially, penguins really saved it.
They really are.
Here's another one.
Maybe that's why he had that thing against the penguins. You know, the island.
The island.
Yeah, I can't think of it right now.
Like penguins.
I'll have to come back to it.
We do this a lot. This is another one that I really like. I don't think we've covered this one, but it's called A Day in the Life of Marlon Bundo, and it was written by John Oliver, who...
Okay, I've heard of that one, but I'm not familiar with that one either. I mean, I haven't read it.
It's about gay bunnies. It's great.
I'm saying, I love his little bow tie.
You haven't read this?
No, bow tie's really cute.
Yeah, John Oliver wrote it. He wrote it in response to Mike Pence, when Pence was the vice president, being all homophobic and whatnot. John Oliver wrote a book. Yeah.
Okay. That's got to be a good one then.
Oh, it's so good. My kids are older now, so they're like past this stage. But when they were little, they read this like every single night because it's such a funny book.
Oh, they did. Oh,
yeah. There's like so many cute little characters in it. There's like
I
gay
love that.
otters. There's like a gay wedding. Yeah.
Oh,
We should just cover this.
Yeah, that's a cute one. I haven't seen that
that's
one.
really
So
cute. Yeah.
now moving forward, do you want to stay in education or does this kind of like turn you off?
I don't, it's so hard because like my heart is in education. I've tried with so I have my MSW, it's Master's in Social Work. And so with that degree, it's really awesome because you can kind of bounce around places. So I've worked in hospitals, I've worked in adoptions, I've done like pediatric social work and all sorts of things.
Wow.
And I love all of it, but I end up always coming back to education because it's like, that's where my heart is. I feel like that's where I really shine. So I guess like this happening was just kind of like a bruise to my ego a little bit because for a while I was like, because it happened a few months ago. At first, it was like, well, if I was good enough, they wouldn't have fired me, right? Or like if I was thought of well enough, then they would have just not done that, right? And so obviously, I've done some work on that and like some healing with that, and I feel like that's not the case. But yeah, so that I've taken a few months just to kind of hang out.
That's good.
I also know I'm coming from a very privileged place because I don't necessarily have to find a job right now. And it gives me the option to speak out more because I know a lot of people who and I actually know a few people who this has happened to. And they didn't really have the option because they either needed to keep that job or they needed a job within a system where they would need that reference or, and so for me, luckily I'm married and I have a husband. And so we weren't necessarily relying on that really crappy Catholic school income anyways.
Right.
And so I have a little bit of freedom to try to figure out what I want to do next. But yeah, unfortunately, my heart is in education. So I'll find my way back there, I think.
And I know what you mean with that imposter syndrome. Like that is so real. And it's like, it is a part of the system. It is designed to, not just affect women, but I feel like women are disproportionately affected by imposter syndrome. And as someone who also is in education, like, I've had similar experiences where I've been questioning was I just not good enough? And that is just so hard to get over, but it's so important to remember that we are a part of a system that is trying to keep people like us who want to actually like uplift the voices of the marginalized groups. That system is trying to keep us down. So
yes, very true.
It helps if we remember that we're not going to let them keep us down.
I know it's hard, and it's hard when I feel like I just have to follow my heart more and kind of push everything else aside because part of me too was like, well, if I just wouldn't have said anything, if I just wouldn't have, you know what I mean? If I just, why do I always have to be the one to say something? Like, just shut up, Annie. And you know what I mean? And that comes
don't shut up, Annie.
I'm like, just stop. Like, just maybe don't say anything at this next meeting. But I just can't help myself sometimes. And it's, again, I think it's because too,
you're caring.
I care about it and I know I can. Like, I'm not afraid of it because I don't have a lot of consequence if something like this happens. And so I can kind of use that privilege.
True.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
And we need more educators and people in school systems to speak up. And I understand that a lot of them can't, so sometimes I get upset. I'm like, why is the librarian removing these books? But then I'm like, this librarian depends on that income for her family. So I get it, but when we have the privilege and we can speak up, we have to.
Yeah, I can think of a few individuals, that I'm friends with that I will categorize in the quiet majority, which, and I understand there are certain situations where like you rely on that shitty teacher's income, so you can't take that away. But there are people I know that are no longer in education, but they've seen the injustices firsthand, but they're still part of the quiet majority. And it's like, what is it going to take for you to speak up against something like Randy Fine coming to our school, which happened yesterday? Randy Fine, disgusting politician, actually came into our children's schools without any parental notification or consent.
Yes.
And people are not as outraged as I am. And that makes
what was he doing there?
We have to sign consents for a movie, for a book to be read. But any Tom, Dick, and Harry can walk into our school
and put sunscreen on their skin.
Because it's like this guy, and lucky my kid was not at one of the schools that he was at, because I would have been in that superintendent's office first thing the next morning demanding answers. And
what was he doing there?
He would just happen to be here for some other thing. And so he just like got pulled in or I don't know how it happened, but
we have a very we live in a very red state, in a very red town. And a lot of people in charge of our schools are very red. And so this was a chance to kiss his ass, basically.
But I even know, like, I wouldn't describe the superintendent as red, and I'm not.
No, not the superintendent.
And I'm not saying that she had, like, this is her fault. I think it was the Ed Foundation, which is, I don't know. I guess they're red. I didn't think they were. It's like people start to show their true colors, and it's like, at what point are you going to make a decision and decide which side of history you're going to be on? Like, everyone's 100%. Got a line. China's line got like their line, like they started dropping food in Palestine. A couple of months ago. Like they even have a line. Where's our line? Right. It's like, it's just baffling to me. So to bring it back, because this does connect, I swear, we need more people like Miss Annie who aren't, and I do understand that some people can't because of their financial situation, but those that can, we need you to speak up and remember that this is not normal. Like, ostracizing a kid because their parents are gay or because they might be gay. Like that is not normal and it's not okay. And that's just one thing of just hundreds of things on this list of not okay, not normal things that we all have to speak up about.
And using religion to do it is just so disgusting because that's not very Jesus-like.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
I'm not a very religious person, but that's the part that gets me. Like, how are you religious and then you say things like that,
It's so tough. And so before we had the current administration, our principal for years and years and years and years was this elderly nun, but she was so kick ass. Like she was like a secret. One time she whispered in my ear and she was like, "I'm a feminist." I'm like, yeah. But it was like had to be a secret, but she was like so open-minded and so wonderful. And we had so many discussions about how people are born the way that they are. And I mean, she just was a beautiful human. And so when she retired, we lost that part of our school. But it's really unfortunate. So she's like the version of Catholicism that I grew up with, and that's what I believe in. And so now it's kind of like, you start almost questioning your own faith where you're like, wait a second, like, I don't know. So at this point, I just know that Jesus loves everybody. And that's where I have to go. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. And that's all I know. That's all I know right now.
Yeah. The Jesus thing to me, like, it doesn't make sense because like everything that he said and stood for and lived is just the complete opposite of what we're seeing. But they don't care and they know that. And like people are just inherently like lazy and they just kind of, they know the right thing to do and the right thing to say is, to speak up is just, it's too hard, right?
It's hard and inconvenient.
Yeah. And it's much easier to just sit back and not have an opinion about it. Right. And to 100%. Let people use, Christianity as a tool to oppress people or to become powerful. And then you have the other side of things where you've got all these people that are just like sucked into this cult, this MAGA cult.
Yes.
Where it's like Donald Trump is the next coming of Jesus.
Right.
Even though he's nothing like Jesus. It's because they don't actually read the Bible. Like they don't actually, like they've forgotten. And it's just easier to just sit back and let things like Fox News tell you what to think and what to believe than to actually have critical thinking and like open the Bible and read the words in red. Because if you did, you'd be like, hey, this is the opposite of everything that I'm seeing. And that's 100%. Where critical thinking skills are so important in education today in our public schools and so lacking because we're banning books that promote it.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I know a lot of people who do read the Bible in and out, like pastors. My sister is married to a pastor, very religious, and she's not vocal about who she voted for. But, they always slip up and they like a post, and then you're like, oh, okay. I see you now. And so I know how she voted. And I'm just like, I don't get it. Yeah. You read your Bible, you shun people for things at your at your church for doing the things that Donald Trump does, but then you turn around and voted for him and act like he's a saint.
Yeah.
It's because it's easier for them to not address the inner turmoil that they're most definitely feeling, but they're not going to tell anybody that they're experiencing like this. Like they have a voice in their head that's saying like, well, maybe I'm wrong, right? But it might be a tiny, small, quiet voice, but it's easier for them to just ignore that voice and just be like, I'm going to go with the majority here.
I think it also has to do with them having bought into that mentality that there's a war on Christianity.
Yes.
And so they feel that fear.
Yeah.
There's no war there. Like it's self-made, you know, it's in their head.
Yeah, I guess the LGBTQ community has struggled so much with this because Jesus didn't say like, hey, it's okay to be gay. Like he didn't outright say that, you know, in the Bible. You could argue that, you know, he believed that, but it's easier to say that like homosexuality is a sin, and that's very black and white for them, and that's easily digestible for them to be like, oh, that's bad, that's wrong, anything that has to do with that is wrong. Jesus said so, even though Jesus didn't say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, we always talk about religion.
Yeah. Well,
it's there. It's a big part of it.
We don't know anything about it really either. Like
I grew up at a church, but I didn't pay attention.
Well, 100%. Yeah.
It's not interesting. Like, I mean, and they don't teach the interesting stuff, like the interesting Bible stories. Then I would pay attention.
They should lead with that.
Yeah. So we kind of touched on this already. We talked about, you know, what your next step is. So you took your break, you took a step back. Are you feeling like energized now to like go find a job at a public school maybe? And
yeah. So where I live now, so first of all, one of the consequences of me not being able to go back to the school is my son couldn't really go back either. I didn't feel comfortable sending him back. So he's only known, he's in third grade, but he's only known since he was 4, this tiny Catholic school. And so we had to transition him to public school this year. And that was a whole thing too. And he started Wednesday and it's been wonderful.
Good.
But I was so nervous for him because he's a very shy kid and thrived in that tiny environment, you know, but it's good. It's a good challenge for him. And it's good, honestly, for us to separate because we've been going to school together since he was 4. So, so he's going to a public school. That's been great. Our county right now, or our district, they are $50 million in debt because of some mismanaged funds. And so we're on a hiring freeze. So even if I wanted to work there, the first people who are getting cut are all of our special ed teachers, social workers, counselors.
The ones we need the most. I mean,
yes.
Every position.
That's what my background is.
But we really do. Like
that's we need those the most. Yeah.
Yes. So it's really bad right now where we live. I was like, this is an interesting time to send my son to public school, but yeah. So I don't know. And I also have a 1-year-old who, another issue where we live is there's lack of childcare. They have morning care like churches, but there's nothing else. And so I don't know. I've thought about lots of different things.
Yeah, it's hard. If you're, you know, having an 8-year-old and a 1-year-old, that really throws things a curve.
Yeah.
I was pregnant with my third and last when I was a public school teacher for high school environmental science, and I was seriously out the door. And I showed a Bill Nye the Science Guy video. And it wasn't Bill Nye the Science Guy. It was Bill Nye Saves the World. Have you seen those?
Okay, I've heard that. I've heard of them.
It's woke Bill Nye.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yes. Yeah.
So we were just finishing up a unit on like feminism, because that actually is a like a standard in advanced placement environmental science, is like, what if women ruled the world?
Yeah.
And the short answer is there would be a lot less hunger. Right. So like female empowerment would lead to more food production if they could own their own farms, you know, that kind of stuff. So Bill Nye had this episode about like gender and like how it's like a fluid scale. And so like I was like, oh, this is sort of related. So I just kind of threw it on while I was grading papers. And it was like a class of 5 or 6. It wasn't a very big class, 5 or 6 kids that were like juniors and seniors. One of the kids went home and told his dad about it, who freaked out, called the principal, demanded that I would be fired. And the principal's like, okay, you got it. I'll fire her right away.
You'd already given your notice.
I had already resigned.
Wait, stop.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was 8.5 months pregnant. It was like the end of the year. I was like, school's almost out. Let's like get woke, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah,
Go out with
yeah,
a bang.
totally.
and I was a little mad that the principal wasn't like, no, absolutely not, you know, but like
Well,
the principal's
yeah,
like,
I think
listen,
I'd want
he
the
wanted
principal too to kind
you,
of rally. Yeah.
yeah, he wanted you to write an apology letter. I was like, fuck no, there's no way I would do that. But so yeah, I basically can say I was fired too, because
Yeah, you're
someone,
in the fired club. It's never, I mean, it's a fun club to be part of.
yeah, it is a fun club. So, but
Are-
yeah.
So are you in education now, you said, or no?
So after so this was about 8 years ago, I
Mm-hmm.
transitioned to writing curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was to write like social emotional learning,
Mm-hmm.
you know, embed
Mm-hmm.
that into my science curriculum and like student centered, project based learning, social emotional learning. But like
Mm-hmm.
there isn't a market for that because it's all illegal.
Right. Not right now, there isn't.
Especially where you live.
SEL is illegal in Florida. Like we can't do it. So
That
that
is
was my
so
dream.
crazy.
So I ended up just writing like I just write physics questions now. So
Okay.
or just
Okay.
whatever. I do whatever work I can find.
Yeah.
And you know, it's fine. It's better than, you know, having to go, you know, worry if I'm going to get fired every day because I'm just like you, like I can't keep my mouth shut. Like I would have been fired
Mhm.
10 times if I had stayed.
Well,
But
it's like I sometimes I want to shake teachers because I'm like, we all got into this job for a reason. It wasn't for the money. It was, you know, it's like
Right.
we all came into here to make a difference, I thought. And so it's interesting just how things kind of play out. But yeah, I'm sure at some point the pendulum always swings, you know, so I'm hoping that at some point we can kind of get back to where we were because I mean, even when I first started teaching when I was like 22, there was all sorts of cool things going on in schools. I mean, it
Right.
was just like way
Mhm.
more woke than it is now. It was
Right.
just, you
that's
know,
why
you could,
I got into it.
I
Like
feel
I
like we're
thought,
taking so many steps back. I mean, the things a lot of the curriculum and things I used then, I couldn't use now. So it's just
Right.
like, there's got to be, at some point, we've got to go back. And it usually does. It kind of, you
the
know,
pendulum
just
swings.
that's how
Yeah.
the world works.
I saw somewhere that someone was like, maybe this is one of those extinction bursts, you know, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
in scientific language, like
Mm-hmm.
whenever right before an extinction, like there's like a boom in population or something,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
they like eat all the plants and then they die. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
but instead of, you know, eating all the plants, it's like all of the sexist, like misogynistic white men, you know, or whatever, like the
Mm-hmm.
conservative side. Like the there's so many of them, and I shouldn't just say just men, but just like
Right.
the conservative side in general. Like there's so many of them now, but like they're all gonna just sort of like kill each other, you know, metaphorically
100%.
speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not literally,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but you know, eventually, like you said, it's definitely it got to shift to the. At least that's what we're going to tell ourselves.
Fingers
I hope
crossed.
so, just because you think there'd be so many consequences as to like not having SEL in school, not, you know what I mean? And so at some point, it's gotta, I don't know, you'd think
Well,
it's
yeah,
gotta
it's
go
like
back.
you like take ICE for example. Like what Donald Trump is doing right now with the just illegal deportation
Yeah.
of so many people that are, you know, so important. Not only are they're human beings,
Right.
right? But so important to our country and like, you know, the food that we eat. For one small
Mhm.
example, like I mean, too little, too late. You know, if we knew this before the election, but some people like needed to see it
Right.
happen, right? So I don't think anybody really knows what the next election is going to look like
Yeah.
because of everything that's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It'll be interesting for sure.
yeah.
I feel hopefully like you said, the pendulum is starting to swing back a little. Like people are starting to wake up and see
Hope
that
so.
it wasn't the shiny gold statue that they thought it was, and it's just like rust underneath.
Yeah, but you
I
still have
hope
those crazy
so.
people that think he is.
Yeah, but there's,
Yeah.
you know, they're just loud.
That's true.
They're just
They're just
loud.
loud. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
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 Well, Miss Annie, thank you so much for you know, being on the show with us and for being patient and listening to our rants.
Oh my gosh, I could talk to you guys all day.
Awesome. We love it.
Yeah.
We're so happy to have you. And good luck, you know, wherever you do end up.
Thank
Follow
you.
Milk for Books on social media.
I will. I
am
love your
following
name.
your account and I love your posts. I think it's a bright light in, you know, a dark time that we're living in. So follow
Thank
Miss Annie on social
you.
media. Follow Milk for Books on social media. What else? Don't ban books.
Mm-hmm.
Ban bigots.
Love that.
This episode has been engineered and mixed by your hosts, Jennifer and Courtney.
You can listen to the MILF for Books podcast on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, or literally any podcast app you want.
Check out our MILF for Books YouTube page. That's MILF, 4, Books. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Follow the show on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and Blue Sky at MILF for Books. Again, that's MILF, 4, Books. But follow us on TikTok at Moms into Literary Freedom.